All right, welcome everybody to the September Bytown Housing Committee meeting. I will start the meeting by asking for any additions or changes to the agenda. Anybody? I have a cell phone. The 617 phone number. Can you just identify yourself for us?
Hey, that's me, Charlie. I'm not sure why it showed me as a different number.
Oh, that's fair. Okay. All right. Hopping right into it. This is supposed to say Gretchen group, but Gretchen is going to talk to us about the ADU informational brochure that we talked about at the last meeting.
Hi, so Wilmington Works, the Economic Development Committee has been working on this and it's not ready to preview as of yet. So we will hopefully get it for next month as a preview. And so what we're trying to do is to make this so that Dover can easily use the same one by changing what their ordinance says. So anyway, we've been working on it, trying to make it pretty and attractive.
Gotcha. Right on. Fair enough. All right. Well, we'll have a shorter meeting today. All right, let's hop in. Gretchen and I spoke the other day and we took a deeper dive back through our housing analysis and master plan to say, okay, here's what we've taken out of this. Here's what we've already talked about. What do we have left to cover? One of the things in there that we think, could potentially be that low-hanging fruit is to look into the education both on the landlord side of things and also on the renter side of things. And I think that we have a decent amount of resources, I think, on the housing page, but I think the idea here was to put something together similar to what Gretchen's talking about with the ADU sheet that we could provide, to the landlord, to the potential renter, to kind of guide them in the right direction when it comes to finding this information. About renting an apartment or signing a lease on an apartment. Does anybody have thoughts on us putting something like that together, or want to work on it, or have ideas about what type of information we should be sharing? Looking for input from the group.
What about what's available from the state that is already a handbook for renters and tenants?
So I think, like I said, we do have some links that kind of head out of the housing website that have some of that information. I think the point here might be diving into some of that information and pulling some of the bigger pieces out to put onto a potential, one sheet or something like that, or I think that was the idea. Gretchen, that's what we were thinking, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And how would this help landlords? With what few they are left?
I think the idea was to tailor that. It wouldn't be the same sheet for both, right? Like the renters would have a sheet that kind of guided them on the rights and responsibilities of a renter, and the landlord would have a sheet that guided them on the rights and responsibilities of being a landlord. I think was the idea. So it's not like they're both looking at the same sheet and we're trying to squeeze everything onto one sheet. It would literally be separate for each of them.
So this was something that was in our housing analysis that suggested we do this. I don't know, is this valuable? And we need to ask ourselves this question, because there's no sense in us jumping through these hoops if they don't really need to be jumped through. And maybe our website is enough, or maybe we need to figure out how to really promote our website more.
I'm thinking there should be a link to the state handout that already exists. It should probably, if it doesn't already exist in the town clerk's offices, that would be a good place for it to be available. It's extensive. You're not going to get everything on one page for landlords and one page for tenants if you really want something to be useful.
I don't think, Sue, that it was like, okay, let's put every piece of information all on one piece of paper. I think it was maybe let's have some bullet points on there about the types of information that might be available at the different resources and kind of guide them into using it, right? So like we have this resources page, you know, here on our website, which I think at one point we were like, okay, we're all going to take a look and find some resources to be putting on this page. And then that kind of went by the wayside. So right now, our local resources that are listed on the website are Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust, Shires Housing, and then the zoning departments of Dover and Wilmington. From the state, we have, you know what? If only there was a way for me to share my screen and show you what I'm talking about. Can everybody see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So state, you have ACCD, VHFA, the Vermont State Housing Authority, and the US Department of Housing and Urban Development. That should be down here, actually, under federal, and then the USA.gov site. So I think, you know, this is potentially a great place to be directing people. But again, I think we need to do a little more work on the resources that we're providing, you know, once they land here. What are we thinking?
What kind of traffic are we getting on this site?
I don't have an answer for that right now, Vicky, but I will dig into it. And there's tracking on the back end of Wix. I haven't done it for this website.
I'm guessing it's not a lot.
Probably not a lot. But at the same time, like we never really did like a launch, right? Like, hey, everybody go look at this. Because I think, again, we initially had that plan to kind of look at the resources that were available there and add some more so that we were going to have like a more robust and full, you know, offering. And I think that kind of went by the wayside. So maybe, you know, maybe us offering that information out to people does in fact start with what we had intended to do, which was to add more to that page. I don't know, like we've tried a couple of times now to put it out to the group to say, hey, everybody go do some research, and it for some reason it's just not happening that way. Is there anybody?
I agree with Sue. I think that we should get a direct link to the renters, the handbooks that the state provides, and label them as such versus having them have to go through a state site and then try to find it. So I would be on the same page as Sue on that one.
Okay. So I can do that piece. That's not a problem at all, and I will just link those handbooks directly there, and we'll keep the other links as well because I think there's other useful information there as well.
Do we know if they're in the town clerk's offices?
I have not seen them downstairs.
I'm trying to remember where I've seen them in the past, but
Shannon looks like she's headed to prove me wrong. So I don't remember seeing them downstairs, but they very well could be.
that might be something to ask. I don't know who you asked, Jeanette, to get them. I'm sure the state would be happy to send a bulk out to, you know, both town clerks' offices.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we could add that as well, that says if we get them or if we already have them, that those handbooks are available at the town clerks.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
So
I will check with our town clerk to see if we have them.
gotcha. Thank you, Gretchen. Now, question, okay, is like. When I built this site, it was like, okay, I have time to put this site together, but I'm gonna need some help, right? And I know everybody, like, we're all super busy, right? But is there anybody who can kind of take this head on, at least at some point this month to say like, okay, here's the information that should be shared from our website, and then kind of share that with the group and get it to me so that we can kind of like update this thing and make it worth it. I think the point we stressed when we put this website together was to make sure that it like stayed current and that we had like useful information there that would actually drive people to come and use it. Is there anybody that has time over the next month to take a dive into this? That doesn't work apparently. To take a dive into this to find, information that we should be sharing or want to see on this website or anything like that. I don't, especially right now with a couple of the projects we have going on, I don't know that I have the capacity to take a deeper dive at the moment. So does anybody want to take that on, or how do we want to address it?
Sounds like it's back burner.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a question on this, and so we're able to put things like apartments for rent on this website, is that correct?
It is.
And would the person be able to put it up themselves?
No, and the reason it's done that way is that we're trying to avoid, like, we want to be able to vet it a little bit before it goes onto the website, and that's the same way that it works. Like we on the Town of Dover, or the Discover Dover site that we built for economic development up here, people can post a job listing, but it gets submitted to us so that we can review it and make sure it's not a scam or anything like that.
Right. Okay, so I have one person that's actually looking for an apartment.
Okay.
And I was wondering if maybe I was going to have them put it on our Facebook page and the website.
Okay.
So I will direct them to you so that you can put it up on both, if you don't mind.
The person seeking a rental.
Yeah.
So that's actually not something that we currently have on the website. We have.
Okay, so they could do that on the Facebook page.
They could, and absolutely, and this page is already set up such that I could potentially add that as an option as well, to say, hey, I'm looking for an apartment like this. I think that's just as useful on that page as listing the actual listing itself.
Right. Okay.
But when that person finds an apartment, how do we know? And how do we know?
So that's just it, right? And that's the way all of this works, is that, it's a requirement of the property owner or the person seeking a rental to notify us that they've found the rental or renter that they're looking for.
Right.
We just don't have the back end capability to automate it like that. And we don't really necessarily have any traffic. We do on the job posting side on Discover Dover, but that we don't have the traffic on either one of these sites to justify paying for the capability to automate that. So it's literally just kind of on them to let us know. And that has worked actually very well with the Discover Dover site. Like the saloon had some jobs that they needed posted. We posted the jobs, they reached out and said, okay, we filled this position and this position, and we just removed it from the website. So it really hasn't been a big issue, especially with the volume that gets used. So I think we can continue with that model. It's just we need to make it clear. And I think it even says it is the responsibility of the poster to notify our department when the position has been filled or removed. That's literally right on the website.
Okay.
Okay, so that's kind of how we've been dealing with that. And again, I don't think we have enough traffic to justify paying for the back end capabilities to automate all of that. It's just, it wouldn't be worth it. Probably more than the website cost us to put up in the first place.
Right.
Yeah, our website here for our classifieds, we can put a start date and an end date. So we could say, we'll put it up for you for 2 weeks.
Right.
And then it's going to automatically come down. And we don't have to touch it again, just it comes down, it's done. And
That's
if
a
they
good
want to
idea.
renew it, they have to do that.
Yep. Yeah, I will look into the back end on that as well.
And then one other thing, do we have any funds left?
No,
None, gone. Okay,
I think we spent like $3 or $4 more than what we had to get this live.
mhm,
So that was after we did the mailers, and then we paid for
Classes.
the shared housing classes, and then the rest of it plus $3 or whatever it was paid for the website to be up for 2 years.
so I wonder if we try to get some funds, and maybe somebody here might know of a sponsor. That's how we got it before, the bank sponsored it. And, you know, it does kind of go a long way. I think we got $500,
Mhm.
was that right? And it does go a long way. And I'm just thinking that this would be a great opportunity for us to do some ads and push it on Facebook and Instagram. This website, so that we do have more people going to it. So if anybody wants to do some research on, you know, it was, what was the name of that bank already?
M&T
Well, it's M&T now,
Peoples.
but it was People's Bank, that gave us the money, and I'm wondering if M&T being so new, if they have, you know, if anybody has any connection there.
I mean, we can reach out to Angelo. Is it Angelo? Yes, Angelo, who's the manager of the branch down there now. You know, he had come up and taken a look at a project here and said, you know, that they are definitely ready to start, you know, doing what they can to help the community. So I don't think it hurts to ask them at all. Maybe we check in with BSNL and see if they have any interest in you know,
Mhm.
throwing a few dollars out to help. But yeah, the thing with driving the traffic there is that we want to make sure that it's complete as complete as possible, right? We don't want to put out a half-finished project. So that brings us back around to making sure that we have the assets that we need there.
Right.
I honestly, I would love to say like, I'll take care of it. I keep doing that to myself, and my list is not short.
I know, mine too. So yeah, and I don't know if it would be helpful if you shared with me the login, and, you know, I could help with it. I mean,
Okay.
not.
Yeah,
so
I can totally do that.
Just so that we are moving things along as much as possible. But I mean, like, my 3 days are already taken up, but and I'm about to sign another contract. So
Perfect.
so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess realistically, like, I can try to take a look at some point. It's just, it's not right on the top of the list. So, you know, we'll get into it when we can, but again, I don't want to. If anybody wants to start looking into getting some dollars, you know, to buying some ads and you know, doing some promotion on Facebook and things like that, like, let's start that process now. And if we are like, hey, guess what? We have another $500, maybe that prompts us to, you know, make this a little more of a priority to get it done. I want to see it done. Like, I didn't build the website just to build it, right? Like, I think it can be an asset for us. We paid for it because it can be an asset. We just need to put a little more work into it to make it what it potentially can be.
I'm willing to donate a button banner on our website as well.
Awesome.
A clickable one. And so we just need to put together our logo or something and say, click here for housing information. And I'm willing to give that to our efforts for the group.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vicky.
No, that's nothing.
That's great.
Appreciate it though. And just as an update, Shannon did confirm Andy, our town clerk, does have a copy of the Renters' Rights Handbook downstairs and is able to make copies and share with anyone who comes in looking for them. But I will reach out and see if they're, even in the world of still doing hard copies of things, and if they are, we can request some of those and get them here. You know, typically, I remember at the chamber, we would request cases of things from the state, so if they have that available, then I can get some here, and if they do have them, we can get them down to you as well, Gretchen. Sue
Okay.
Westa, did you just have your hand up?
No, I just had a little fruit fly in front of my face.
I thought maybe you were volunteering to do all the work on the website. No,
Right.
no, that's fair. Okay, so I guess that's how we'll proceed for now. Does anybody want to take a crack at reaching out to anybody for some potential? You know, does anybody bank at people's? Ski Home Realty will help sponsor, and you should talk with the other real estate agencies, but if Gretchen forgets who we are, I would withdraw. John, thank you. I will be in touch to discuss that with you and how you can potentially help spread some of that information between your real estate world contacts. Does that work for you? Thank you for
Thanks, John.
throwing that out there. I'll be in touch on that. If anybody happens to be in M&T or BSNL or wherever you might bank and wants to mention it to anyone there, would appreciate it as well. Okay. All right. We're going to move on. Hopefully we'll have more of an update on that stuff for you guys next month. So the short-term rental registration committee. Okay. Dover met about it similar to the way that Wilmington met about it. A bit of an easier road for me just because Gretchen forged that path that I was able to say to our board, here's what we'd like to see come out of this, and the board agreed to let us do that. So much like in Wilmington, our board supports the idea of us being involved in a subcommittee to take a deeper dive into this topic so that we can get as much information together as possible and come back to them with an informed decision on what a potential ordinance might look like and what a potential registration system might look like. I did stress to them that, you know, while we have spoken pretty much exclusively to Granicus at this point, that does not necessarily mean that we are stuck with them. There are plenty of agencies out there who do the same exact thing that Granicus does, just, you know, that Granicus happened to be who's pestering us to buy something the most out of all of them. You know, in my in my quest to gather information similar to what Gretchen shared with Wilmington, I did, you know, I said, like, let's see what we're looking at in terms of spending for Airbnbs in the town of Dover in a given year. So what I found is that Airbnb, or AirDNA rather, produces this income data to within a 98% accuracy window. Okay, which is pretty decent considering what they have to work with the data. From May of 21 to April of 22 in West Dover alone, we're showing income on Airbnb properties in the area of $30 million.
Wow.
That's a lot of money,
Yeah.
like a lot of money. And just another point driven home that, like, we need to be taking a look at the way these things are managed and the rules surrounding them, right? So Dover's on board, Wilmington's on board. I think Gretchen and I have, you know, agreed that we will take part in those meetings. Charlie, who graciously volunteered himself. Megan's not standing there listening, is she? I don't want to get you in trouble. Charlie,
No, we're good.
Charlie volunteered himself to kind of chair this subcommittee and keep things moving forward for us. And he actually put together a potential charge for the meeting, or for the group rather, which I did share with you guys. Was everybody able to take a look at that?
Mhm.
Yeah. Does anybody have any thoughts or feelings or anything about the charge?
Seems good.
Okay. I think the point we definitely want to stress is, you know, to try to make sure that we we do our best to make sure that that we stick to this type of structure. If it's going to be limited to a certain number of people, we want to make sure that we have representatives from both Dover and Wilmington. And we want to make sure that we have people represented from both sides of the aisle, and we don't seem as though we are stacking, pro or con Airbnb sides of things. So I know in Wilmington, there had been some ideas of people who are interested. Gretchen and I received an email from James Walker, who is the manager at Chimney Hill.
Executive director. Yeah.
The executive director at Chimney Hill. He had provided us with some a number of people from that organization who use Airbnb and do it correctly, and have been doing it correctly right on through. So I think, we can look at some of those people. I should have no problem here in Dover finding a lodging property owner, to take that seat. Charlie, I assume you would be the lodging property owner representative for Wilmington, correct?
Yes, either myself or Shelley Lockyer.
Okay.
I was gonna try to just stay out of it. Maybe you can call me, chamber volunteer.
Okay, that's totally fair. Okay, so either yourself or Shelley. I will reach out to one of our inn owners here. I need to find, and my locals can probably help me out with this, is to find an Airbnb owner in Dover to be a part of the conversation, because I want to make sure that that is represented here.
Yeah,
Hey, Eric, this is,
if I could jump in real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's Charlie. So I was thinking I will send you and Gretchen an email, just sort of sharing the charge and what we're looking for commitments. Gretchen and I talked about it a little bit, and I didn't have time to call you today. But I would say literally a max of 6 meetings. First meeting, introduction. Second meeting, review the pros and the cons. Third meeting, review like research that we've talked about in our charger. And then everything, the rest of the meetings are guidelines development, continuing guidelines development, and final proposal. And I guess the biggest thing is, I think if maybe we come up with an email that we can then send out to people looking for volunteers of 10 hours a month, and knowing that we're looking for people who are aware of the pros and cons and have time to address the pros and cons. While there are many people that want to share their opinions, we need to have members in this committee who are willing to see, who have ideas on how to make changes, as opposed to just sharing opinions. So I think we'll have a long list of people that want to be on it. And I think between Gretchen, yourself, and myself, we can sort of weed through and come up with a good list.
Yeah, and I think as far as, there is going to be that point where I think, like you said, Charlie, there's going to be plenty of people who have opinions on both sides of this fence. We may need to establish like an appropriate way for those opinions to be shared, whether we set up a Gmail account or something along those lines, so that in the initial review, we can kind of take into account some of those opinions, or whatnot, because I think that this is a potentially contentious thing to be talking about, right? And we've known that since we started talking about it. But Charlie, if you have the time and the energy to put that type of email together for Gretchen and I to be sharing, like I think that that way we're kind of a united front to say, here's what it is and how it works, and kind of go from there. And how would you want, based on an email like that, do you want people reaching out directly to you? Do you want people reaching out to Gretchen and I? How do you want that to work?
I think the best thing is what you were saying is I'll make a Gmail account for, rental. I'll do TV rental or something like that. And I'll share it with you guys, and then, we'll get information that way. And yeah, we can definitely create a forum or let people email in information. But yeah, as the chair, I just want to make sure we have people that are know the commitment we're looking at, and there's a forum to listen, but there's also a forum to act on.
Correct. Yeah, and I think, as part of that, Charlie, and we use the process, like when we were looking for committee members for the Dover Trails and Rec, just having them put something in writing about why they want to be involved with it, to make sure that it's, to impartially kind of advance these initiatives and discuss these initiatives without having, necessarily a dog in the fight, fighting hard one way or the other. I think it's important to stress that, we're looking to impartially kind of look at this thing. And, I know we're going to have inn owners and we're going to have Airbnb owners, but the people on the committee need to be people who are open to looking at it from all sides so that we're not pigeonholing ourselves in one direction. You know what I mean? So however we can word that to make it work, that would be awesome.
So Eric, this is Becky,
Hi, Becky.
and being a new, not even listed yet in Airbnb owner,
Mhm.
I would like to see Dover almost have east and west representation, because I know several people over here that have Airbnbs that are so not even close to what the Airbnbs are in West Dover. So I would kind of like both sides of the town to share.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm gonna send, I think the idea here is that I'll send out myself and Gretchen will share the information that Charlie gives to us.
Mhm.
And it would be dependent on somebody, I'm sharing with East Dover the same as West, but it would be dependent on somebody from East Dover stepping up to want to be a part of the conversation.
I would definitely like to be a part of the conversation because I see pros and cons to both sides. But yes.
Okay, yeah, I mean, definitely make sure that I have you on the list of people that I share that with, Becky. I think you might be on my email list anyway, but if not, I will be sure to get you on
You are, I am.
there. Okay.
Thanks.
This is Susan.
Yeah.
When you asked about at the beginning of this topic, reading the primary goals, I should have spoken up then. I know at the last meeting, we talked about including long-term rentals. And I'm kind of wondering if, I'm not really sure why we decided that. I think if you want to keep the meetings to a minimum of hours, I'm not sure we need to propose any new ordinances for long-term rentals. So I would want to say, I wonder if we should reconsider whether we include long-term rental under the ordinance. Nothing wrong with having one or two members with long-term rental properties. Their opinions are important too. But I don't really want to focus on long-term ordinances when there's already so many regulations there from the state. It's just not something I think we need to be looking at.
Right, I understand that.
So
Sue.
I
I
can-
think
this
in the
is-
Wilmington piece, when we had our meeting, one of the select board members, well, two of them actually, were very in agreement about, when you do this, you need to be talking about long-term as well. And so I think that we have to keep that in there. And yeah, it's probably not going to be a large focus because they are regulated, except for the older apartments that have not been renovated in multiple years. So I think that we do have to look at both in order to make this fair
That's
and
fine, but do
equitable.
we want to be actually, maybe it's the wording of this sentence, may propose new ordinances. Do we want to be focused on that with long-term rentals?
Yeah, because I don't think it doesn't, the charge would not then require us to make ordinances on either topic, really. It just says may make ordinances, in our investigations, we may find that it is necessary to have an additional ordinance, pertaining to long-term rentals, or we may find that it's not. I think what this charge allows us to do is to gain the information to know exactly whether or not we do or don't need those ordinances. Like Gretchen said, I don't think it's the main focus of the group, but I know that there is an interest in making sure that that playing field is level. And we've even had.
I don't want to turn long-term landlords off. Coming in with some sort of a, worry that we're going to come up with the ordinances. I think, as we want to attract some long-term landlords to be on the committee, I'm just concerned that they're going to be worried about that.
Yeah, I mean, my response to that would definitely be that, we're definitely not planning on putting any ordinances in place to make it harder, for them to run a long-term rental property. That's not the idea. It's just to make sure that what we are offering is, is safe and reliable and things like that. We're not trying to create another barrier to a long-term rental. There's plenty of those in the way already. And like I said, we may get through this process and realize, hey, we don't need to do anything with the long-term rentals. I think the idea, as Gretchen just stated, was that there was a request that we review this piece of it to make sure that they are being held to a standard as well.
And they would be able to provide us with insight on what is already being required of them.
Right.
The handbook has all that.
Yeah, so we'll get the handbook. But yeah, like I said, the charge, the way it's written, does not require us to create new ordinances.
No, let's not put that in the Valley News. May propose regarding long-term rentals.
No matter what we say or do, it's we are in a place where opinions are formed fast and not always as informed as we'd like. So, no matter what we write or say, it's probably going to be spun in a direction, that is not 100% favorable. We'll do everything we can to make sure that it's as open and transparent as possible, so that people know that what we're trying to do is for the good of the community and not, just to make more rules. And then, we've even had this discussion before where it was like, okay, maybe potentially we include them in the registration system, but don't necessarily charge them those registration fees, just so that we have everybody in that one rental database. I mean, there's lots of things that we've discussed in the past that can be implemented through this charge. This charge is basically getting us to the point where we look at all of those things to decide what the best option is for both of our towns, right?
I guess I'm thinking maybe may propose new ordinances regarding short-term rentals and encourage more long-term rentals, something like that. Would be more realistic what we're trying to do.
But I think what Gretchen was saying is that while, like, I didn't have this comment in Dover, but she had select board members who are interested in us looking into the long-term portion as well. Again, we're not in the business of making it harder to have a long-term rental. We are in the business of making sure that we have safe and, attainable.
I don't want to take up all your time. I just see looking into long-term rentals as a separate committee or at a separate time. I don't really see it at this time.
It can't be. We have to talk about these as the same, because they are rental units and we need to talk about them at the same time. And we need to do this committee, and like this charge is really just for committee members to make sure that they're in alignment with what they're doing, that they're not getting, like, oh, there's a chicken over there and we need to go investigate that, but it's not on this charge. They shouldn't be investigating it. So
okay, it wasn't something that we'd ever thought about investigating. That was the point until the Wilmington selectmen mentioned it. It's nothing that has been in the housing committee. We've been all about short-term rentals.
Understand that. I completely that was not from this housing committee, But the people who pass the ordinances and the policies are the select board members.
Right, right.
And
And
if
if they
we
want
go
to, and
back-
if they want to look at long-term rentals, then we need people who really want to look at that. I don't know how many
But they're
people.
not
on this-
going to, like, the select board
Okay.
isn't gonna go back and do their own investigation. They came out and they asked at that meeting that we also, within this committee, are talking about long-term. And I think
Okay.
if we
So
leave
let's
that
leave it
out,
at that. I just, I'm concerned about the number of hours we're going to be putting in
If-
addition to focusing on short term, but let's not go any further. I don't want to tie up any more
if we
time.
leave this off, then the chances of this, and I don't know where they're gonna end up. Maybe they don't end up with an ordinance. I don't know. But if they do end up with an ordinance, what if, oh, Dover was accepting of it and Wilmington wasn't? We don't want to get into that
true.
competition piece. And so I think that it's important that it was clearly outlined when I went to them that this is what they wanted us to do, is come back to the Bytown Housing Committee, create a subcommittee off of this, or however we wanted to do it, but to look not only at short-term rentals, but at long-term rentals as well.
Okay.
Yeah, just a reminder, I mean, as far as these committees go, and it's the same when we deal with the subcommittee for marketing, we have the ideas, the final say does in fact come from those select boards, right? We put these ideas in front of them. They're the ones who advance the initiative. So if they give us a directive, I mean, we're as economic development departments and also as this subcommittee, we're tasked with what they give us to do. Okay.
I just have a comment on our charge here that we need to change, is we need to put in that Eric and I would be members of this committee. We kind of left that out.
Yep, no, I'll change that.
Awesome. Okay, any other thoughts on that? John Red?
Eric, I'd like to go back to a metric that you mentioned about $30 million in rent during
Yeah.
a certain period.
Yep.
Is that what you said?
Yep.
So does that mean that the town's got $300,000 in 1% revenue from that?
Throughout the year, it would sound that way, yeah.
I mean, is there any way to verify that came in? I mean, Airbnb.
Well, so that's the reason we've been rather tentative about sharing that data, is that we're trying to confirm with their DNA, they're claiming a 98% accuracy rating on their data. So what we're looking for them before we come out and say, hey, there's $30 million in spending on Airbnbs, is that they show us how they came to that number.
Well, they may get it from state reports, but that doesn't account for the 1%.
Yeah, no, this is based on available properties for rent, and then there's a metric that they use, but basically at this point I've asked them to clarify that, because as we're looking at this information, we're going to need to verify that these things are correct. But even on the low end of things, from I was talking with someone else about it who's familiar with the data, and even on the low end of things, we're looking at $25 million a year. During the winter, the average rental price of an Airbnb in Dover jumps to it's like $700 or something like that, and most of them are over $1,000 a night. So it's not out of the question that if somebody's renting their property 50 or 60 days throughout the winter season, which they totally are, at $1,000 a piece. I mean, there's 558 unique properties listed on short-term rentals in Westover alone. So it's not out of the question.
Yeah, no, I have no idea. I guess where I'm headed with this question is that if you have a revenue stream, you're going to need to figure in some costs that should come out of that, because a key component to any ordinance is enforcement. And without enforcement, you got nothing.
Mhm.
So, it just boggles my mind to see the examples of the lack of fire safety, the lack of septic, all the things that are happening because there's no enforcement. Nobody's asking questions. And the state's not going to do it. And I think we have an obligation to our townspeople to make sure that this is being done right.
Yep.
And we're not trying to cut off business. It's just that you've got to pay to play. Bottom line.
Yeah, no, and that's absolutely it, right? And I will say it until I'm blue in the face. I said it the other night at the select board meeting. A few people who have called up in arms since. In no way, shape, or form is what we're talking about intended to shut down or hinder Airbnb stays or properties. It is to regulate them so that we ensure that, our year-round residents don't have to deal with a lot of the issues that they deal with on a common basis just because somebody next to them has their property listed on Airbnb. There's all kinds of boxes that this checks off. We just need to keep that narrative in the public that this is in fact a good thing for our community. And eventually, the idea of doing this now is to prevent further down the road when we've gotten to a point where some other towns have, where they just say, you know what, no Airbnbs at all. We don't want that. We understand that there's this, if we're pulling even close to that much money in a year in people staying here, then obviously it's an important way for people to be able to visit with us. We don't want to shut that down. We just want to make sure that it's being done correctly and safely. Now, the nice part about, you go back to the enforcement piece, like even, again, just talking with Granicus, they deal with most of this on their side of things so that, we pay them the fee for the registration and they take care of a lot of the enforcement and all of those pieces so that the town isn't burdened with that piece. In terms of like inspections, fire, things like that. I mean, yeah, there could potentially be some things that come out of it, that may require some work on the part of the town or obviously the state with the fire, fire inspections and things like that. But the idea here is not to create a pile of work for our zoning departments either. That the thing with going with a company like Granicus or such is that they take care of a lot of that stuff for us and we don't really have to deal with it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I think there are nuances, and I'm not familiar with that company that you're mentioning, so I don't know what they do exactly.
Mhm.
But I heard an example this morning that just raised the hackles on my neck, where an Airbnb property rented, and they were put on notice that they had to permit and build a new septic to accommodate the level of occupancy. Well, they got their permit, but they never built it. So, and it's just as busy now as it was before, and nobody's doing anything about it. And that's a health and safety issue for everybody.
Charlie had a comment?
Yeah, John, so this is the whole point of this subcommittee. So we have lots of opinions on a lot of people on the positive and the negative impacts on the short-term rental. So if you know of people that'd be interested, we'll be forwarding out more information on how to join this committee, and we'll be collecting all the different opinions and going through the process. So if you know of people who are interested, it's the biggest thing on this committee is that we're taking these opinions and we're going to review the different communities in the area and then come up with ideas that we can then propose to the town. So there'll be other forums and chance for people to share them, but if you know of people that are interested, please pass it on.
Will do.
Thank you.
Okay. So is everybody content with the plan here moving forward? All right, lots of nods, good stuff. Okay, so Gretchen and I will be in touch with Charlie and we'll get that information out. I'll make sure that you guys are on our list as well so that you see when it goes out. You can share it with anybody you might know who might be interested in participating. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me. John, when you have a minute, reach out to me directly and I'm happy to share some of the information that was given to us by Granicus so you can get a pretty good idea of what it is that type of company does for us, okay? All right, awesome. So if there's nothing else, Gretchen.
Of course, I always have something else. Oh, and Sue does too.
Okay.
I wanted to let everybody know that there is a AARP Livable Communities webinar. It's virtual on September 21st through the 22nd. I will send that link out in an email so everybody can take a look at that. And that is around housing. And then the VAHC, the Vermont Housing, Sue, help me. Vermont
Right.
Housing,
Housing and conservation.
Right.
Housing and Conservation, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Vermont Agency of Housing and Conservation. They are having a Southeast Region Town Hall. And this is, you know, around the southeastern Vermont area. It's on September 27th from 7 to 8:30. And again, you have to pre-register for this. But I think that might be another good opportunity to make sure that some of us are on there and making ourselves known that we have a housing crunch in Southern Vermont. Sue?
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that, as you know, we've been working with Wilmington on the bylaw modernization grant and looking at their zoning regulations to consider ways that they might be able to promote housing development in and around the village center. And we do have a public meeting coming up in October, and just look for that information. I'll definitely be, Gretchen will have it and she can send it to the rest of the group. We're having a public meeting on one night, and the week before that, we're going to have a little walking tour around the village so that folks understand what kind of multifamily housing already exists and what it means, so they have a better context for that conversation. And the other thing is, there's a new round of those bylaw modernization grants coming up. Last year I talked to Dover about that, and I wasn't able to get any interest, but somebody mentioned there may be interest this year. Do you know anything about that, Eric?
I did not realize there was another round, but I will touch base with the appropriate people and see what we can do. I would like to see it happen.
Yeah.
Because it's going to help with our initiatives that I'm working on. It's just a question of whether or not we can get zoning and PC on board as well.
Well,
So-
if they are interested, have them reach out to me and I
Okay.
can help them.
Okay, I will absolutely do that. Okay. All right. If there is nothing else, our next meeting will be in October on Wednesday, October 12th from 3 to 4. Okay, if you have items you'd like to see on the agenda, please get them to me by the week before. I'll get them on there. If you have questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.